This is Jonathan Todd reporting backstage at the Canterbury Odeon. Okay, I'll start off, Rory, by asking you how you started off your career as a professional musician back in Ireland.
Well, I started as a youngster playing acoustic guitar and doing folk songs and things like that at talent contests and school concerts, scout concerts, that, you know, charity shows, and then just I was a big fan of Lonnie Donegan and Elvis Presley and people like that, and then just sort of graduated to the electric guitar and started playing the odd gig after school, and I joined an Irish show band for a couple of years, and I was still in school but trying to sort of do sort of a semi-professional thing as well, you know, because they'd get the odd little tour of England or some work in Spain, working in the American Air Base or something like that. But anyway, I just worked away at that, the dance band. I wasn't really happy there, but I got an opportunity to do some Chuck Berry stuff and things like that. But then you'd do that, and then you'd have to do country and western and novelty numbers and all that. But then eventually I broke away and went to Hamburg with a little three-piece and went back to Ireland, and then got another three-piece together which was called Taste back in '66, and then that band stayed together in two different forms right through till 1970. Made a couple of albums and did quite a bit of touring in Europe and did fairly well, and then 1971 started off with my own outfit and been doing that more or less since. And so I just started as, you know, your average youngster, you know, acoustic guitar, you know, very simple start. But I was, you know, I was very keen. I started when I was about 9, you know, so. And I was already interested in rock and roll and music in general from the radio from the age of 6 or 7. So my memory goes back longer than maybe the average youngster. Normally you find kids getting into music, you know, when they're 12, 13, 14. But I'm glad really, because it gives me memory of the really golden days of rock, you know, with Buddy Holly, Eddie Cochran, Fats Domino, and things like that. That's more or less how I started, really. No guitar lessons, no one in the town that was playing guitar that was to teach me. I just learned out of little books, little tutors.
And to this day, do you still avoid using gadgets like wah-wah pedals and fuzz boxes and copycats and that kind of thing?
I do, yeah. I use a flanger at the moment and a little preamp. But that's about it. And I use a graphic sometimes, just to graphic equalizer, because some halls you find that you need a little more spike in the sound or a little more mid-range or that kind of thing. But they're not what you call gadgets, they're more just, well, the flanger is a gadget, sure, but wah-wah pedal I don't use, except on occasion in the studio if you're doing a bit of slide work and you click it on and you just take the wah-wah pedal back a quarter of an inch, you get a very interesting tone at that point. I don't use it as a wah-wah, you know, sort of thing, but just as a tone pedal. But on stage it's not really practical for me, I don't really use it. I've never really used an echo machine, although it'd be handy to have an amp with, you know, for a very dry hall it wouldn't hurt, but in general I like to keep it simple, just for, because, you know, the less you have to worry about, the less it's going to break down. And
why did you decide to drop the keyboards from your lineup? Because for a time you experimented with keyboards in the band, now you've dropped it again. Why did you do that?
Well, he was a great player, and we worked for about 5 years together. And but I just came to a point where I felt the band needed a sort of a change of feel, and we got a new drummer, Ted McKenna, and the keyboards didn't seem to feel right anymore. And I just wanted to get back to that raw, bitty sound you get with a three-piece, and it suits my style. It's more energetic and more sort of rhythmic, you know. That's the only reason, really.
Now, you have a reputation for spending very long periods on the road touring. In an average year, how long will you actually spend on the road?
Well, I don't know, it's hard to say really until I've never really looked at the diary. I mean, I'd say on a tough year, we might spend 8-9 months maybe, or I never try to think about it because it becomes a bit of a tag. People say, oh, they think of me as more of a marathon runner rather than a guitar or a musician or whatever. No, we just tour a lot, but I mean it's really sort of there's a demand for us to play, and we enjoy playing, and it's not a strain. I mean, some years we don't work maybe more than 6 months because you're recording and taking, but certainly in years gone by we have probably toured more than most bands, so I suppose.
Do you enjoy touring or such? Because some bands you read, they absolutely hate every minute, others say they only live to be on the road. So do you enjoy it?
I do indeed, yeah. I mean, there are easier ways of making a living and easier ways of you could just make records and take it easy, do TV shows and that sort of thing. But I don't really think that, for the kind of music I play, you have to keep on the road to some extent. And, otherwise your music is very introverted and it's quiet. And aside from it, you have great fun on the road on a good tour. Other tours, it's a little bit hard, getting up in the morning for a long journey. That kind of part is a wee bit difficult sometimes. But in general, no, I'm suited to the gypsy kind of life,
What's your attitude to the changing fashions of music? Like, you had glam rock, then punk rock and ska, and now you've got heavy metal. I mean, do you try to fit in with any of that, or do you just let it pass you by, or what?
I know, I like to keep an eye on what's going on and so on, but it's crazy. I mean, there was almost nothing new. I mean, ska is a revival of something. The R&B bands are reviving something from the 60s. Even New Wave was a revival of certain things that we'd seen and heard before, and punk was. It's rock just going through different cycles, and so I never, there's nothing new that I've heard that I can't relate it to something I've heard before. But I mean, I like all these changes and revivals. I mean, it's essential to keep the blood shifting and the new ideas. But when sometimes the press go ridiculous, they start seeing significance in something that is really only like something from 1968 with a slightly different twist. I think, but at the moment, I think it's quite a healthy scene. There's some really good stuff going around, and some really good bands, and plenty of bands working live again, which is good,
Now, when you play, do you prefer playing to a fairly large audience or to a small audience and up to 100, 200?
Well, I can adjust, particularly in America we have to work at bigger venues a lot, but no, tonight now would be a good average size. I mean, 1,000 people or 1,500, 2,000 or even 500, I'm quite happy. But, I can manage a big crowd, but once you get over the 2,000 mark, it's not quite as intimate as working with a smaller audience,
Now, you've been working for a great many years, and you've got a very large repertoire of songs. How on earth do you choose those that you're going to play on stage?
Well, you have your own personal favourites, and there's certain songs that you just keep in the act, even though they date back a while, and you always do, like, say, 6 numbers from the newest album, and the set varies every night, and we try to keep in touch with as much of the repertoire as we can. You just play it by ear, really. We don't have any song list. I never know what the second or third song is going to be. Usually know what the first one is. But even then I change my mind. I know, you give, it's a question of 60% new stuff, 30% recent stuff, and 10% oldies, something like that, I think that's everyone's policy, really,
Now, your new album, Stage Struck, that was recorded on the past world tour, yeah? In what countries was it recorded, actually?
Well, we had one track from Melbourne, Australia, some tracks in Ireland, some tracks in France, some tracks in America, and there were 1 or 2 other places, so I can't remember. But we did Cleveland, some tracks, San Francisco, did quite a bit of recording, really, you know. There's so many versions I can't quite remember. But I remember most of where certain ones were done, but they're the main places.
And in a few weeks' time, you're going to be finishing this British tour, and then what are you doing after that?
I don't know, really, at the moment. It depends on what sort of plans we've got. We've probably have to contemplate America. I'm going to have to sort of think of a studio album fairly soon, because I'd like to do the next studio album without having kind of a release date hanging over my head, you know, like we always have. We've pretty much catered for Europe and Australia lately, and the British tour is 6 weeks, fairly comprehensive. But so we'll just take a little breather and see what happens. You know, there's plenty of things we can do. It's just, you know, and this tour is fairly hectic, so we'll get this one done first. You know.
You'll be taking a bit of a rest then.
Take a couple of weeks off anyway. Yeah.